It was an up and down weekend for both the Louisville men and women's basketball teams. We'll talk about this weekend's action on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. As always, I want to say thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast, free on all streaming services, including YouTube now, 5 days a week. Your team every day. As I mentioned, kind of a roller coaster weekend for the Louisville basketball programs. It started out kind of rough on the day in which Russ Dickulus, former star guard Russ Smith, got his number retired at halftime of the game of the men's basketball game against Notre Dame. The Cards unfortunately lost that one 82-70, but the weekend was not over. On Sunday, the women's basketball team back in the win column as they hosted the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, a 72-60 victory. We'll talk about both of those and kind of analyze the contests. And then, as we always do, a Monday mailbag segment will conclude the episode today. Before we get into the content of today's show, like I mentioned, for those who are not aware of who I am, my name is Dalton Pence. I'm a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone, where I serve as both a football beat writer and a recruiting analyst, and also do some PA announce work for the university in various sports. You can check out my personal Twitter in the graphic in the bottom left-hand of your screen, and the podcast Twitter page is at @LO_Louisville. So let's get right on into it. The Cardinals looking to try to resurrect their season on Saturday and get a win streak going against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Unfortunately, that was not able to come to fruition. The Cardinals lost 82-70 at the hand of Mike Bray's team on Saturday. Louisville is now 11-8 on the season, 5-4 in conference play, and it just makes making the tournament that much more difficult. One of two things is going to need to happen. Number one, they're going to have to pretty much almost rip off an 11-game winning streak to conclude the regular season to have a shot. Now, if they were to lose one more game in between now and the end of the regular season, I think you have a chance at possibly getting an at-large. But pretty much the most plausible option, going forward for the men's basketball team is simply winning the ACC tournament, as simple as that may sound. And right now 5-4 in conference play. I'm not exactly sure what. Hold on, I apologize for not already having this pulled up of where they're at in the conference. Everything's the water is still kind of murky, considering the fact that it's still we're less than 10 games into the conference slate. But currently in the ACC, Louisville is 7th in the conference, 5-4. There are two other teams with Virginia and Boston College. Both have 4 losses respectively. So, but it's going to be a very challenging end of the month. They still have Duke to play. They have to play Virginia twice this season. North Carolina is on the schedule. Syracuse is no slouch, etc. So, January was the month for the Cardinals to, rack up wins for the NCAA tournament, and unfortunately, that's obviously has not transpired. So, speaking exactly of the game against Notre Dame, first off, let me go out by saying Notre Dame shot the ball 63% from the field on Saturday, 65% from behind the arc. They were 31 for 49 overall in field goals, 15 for 23 from three-point line. Chris Mack said in his post-game press conference, he said, if you ask the Notre Dame team to come out right now and make 15 of their 23 three-pointers, it'd be very challenging for them to do it or anyone to do it. And he's not wrong. I mean, Notre Dame shot the ball extremely efficiently. That's what they're known for doing, year in, year out, but even more so in this game. So, some of this is Louisville in terms of wrongdoing and not, necessarily playing as good, but in other sense, Notre Dame played very, very well in this one. Now, I will say some of these three-pointers that Notre Dame had were open shots, uncontested. So it's all about context. It's not black and white. We're sitting in the gray area where you have to focus on certain plays. I thought Louisville contested some of the perimeter shots, and it was just coming down to the Irish making them. But there were also, some, very, very open, wide open, uncontested shots, and that's kind of what we've seen, from this team this season at times is, focusing on the zone and forcing teams to shoot. Well, unfortunately, it seems like more often than not they're shooting the ball very well. Notre Dame, obviously shooting over 60% from not only the field but from behind the arc as well. Louisville shot the ball 47%, or I'm sorry, 48. Excuse me. From the field, and 47% from deep. I mean, they were 10 for 21 from behind the arc. So it's not like Louisville shot the ball bad in that regard. But when you look at it, Louisville had a 7-point lead going into the half, and they got outscored by 19 in the second half. I thought that, Louisville struggled with some of the adjustments that Notre Dame was making. They weren't necessarily hitting their shots as they were in the first half, and Notre Dame simply did not cool off. I mean, Blake Wesley, who Louisville was squarely in the mix in terms of recruiting last year, he, scored a game-high 22 points, 8 for 13 from the field, 3 for 4 from deep. He's quickly playing himself into first-round consideration for the NBA draft come June. So he's been, a high-caliber prospect for them. Paul Atkinson Jr. was very solid with 13 points, 5 rebounds. Dane Goodwin, 13 points. He's been a guy that Louisville has struggled with in years past. Prentice Hub, he had 12 points. So it was pretty much a balanced effort from the Irish. Every player that stepped foot on the court for Notre Dame had at least 6 points. They only played 7 in the rotation. Lazuski had 7 and 6. Cormac Ryan had 6 points. Wirtz had 9. So overall, it was a very balanced approach from Mike Bray's team. The Cardinals, on the other hand, still just trying to. I feel like it's a little frustrating just because we're trying to find out what works, and we're January 24th, and we're still trying to find which lineup works. It's been a lot of different mixing and matching. It just doesn't seem like this group is meshing well together at the moment. Sidney Curry, who was the hot hand, he only had 4 points in this one, only played 13 minutes. Malik Williams led the team in scoring. He had 11 points, but had to do so 4 for 10 from the field. Dre Davis, coming off of not playing due to an ankle roll, he had 7 points. Noah Locke, 2 for 5 from the field. Mason Faulkner, 4 for 8. Matt Cross played 16 minutes, did not attempt a single shot. I feel like, that has to change. He has to be a guy that they can rely upon to, do well perimeter shooting. He was supposed to be the guy to replace Quinn Slazinski and be the team's lockdown shooter like Ryan McMahon had been for years past. He had 0 field goals attempted. Jae'Lyn Withers did have 9 points, 4 for 10 from the field, 9 rebounds. I liked his aggressiveness at times, especially on the glass. I feel like, the past 2 games, albeit one was against Boston College, the other against Notre Dame in a loss, I think that even though he wasn't, crazy efficient in shooting, I like the aggressiveness, and it seems like, this is kind of the best 2-game stretch that we've seen from him this season. Sam Williamson, 6 points, 2 rebounds in 14 minutes of play. L. Ellis had 5 points. Jared West was the story of the first half. Made 3 straight three-pointers in the first half, 4 for 4 from deep for the game, 5 for 9 from the field, 14 points. Likely, one of his best outings as, a Cardinal offensively speaking. It's just kind of, the name of the game for the Cardinals is inconsistency is the term that I keep coming back to, because we're seeing other guys step up at other times and not necessarily seeing, a certain guy step up, game in and game out. I think one of the things that I mentioned with this team lacking a true number 1 overall scorer, that they needed multiple players to step up consistently and, give you big-time scoring numbers. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that. So it makes things just that much tougher. Louisville is, squarely out of the NCAA tournament, if I had to, say right now, and it's going to take a valiant effort to try to get back into consideration. So we will, continue to, treat the season the same. We're going to, preview, analyze games and stuff like that. But this weekend started off kind of rough, but ended in a great way. The Louisville women's basketball team back in the win column, once again after a 72-60 victory over the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We'll talk about that here in a second after we talk about our friends at GetUpside. Hey, Cardinal fans, this is your host, Dalton Pence, with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about, GetUpside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents per gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free GetUpside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use the promo code SCORE and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon off on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents off on cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Those that drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right back to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon or other brands. Just download the free GetUpside app and use the promo code SCORE to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. As I mentioned, Jeff Walz, you got to know, the Cardinals are going to bounce back. Jeff Walz's team, I've gone on record and I've said, Jeff Walz, when it comes to, handling adversity and getting over a loss, there are not many coaches in women's basketball or college basketball or a lot of other sports that can say that they have a guy like Jeff Walz at the helm that is able to get over adversity as good as he does. I feel like he's an extremely good motivator. He's very good at being able to, key in on what improvements need to be made. And it's not just Jeff Walz, that coaching staff, Sam Purcell, Miss Pineda, Beth Burns, etc. I feel like I'm missing one, but if I am, please forgive me. It's purely out of ignorance, so to speak. So, but regardless, very, very, very important. All of them are, and not only them, but the players are willing to get past that tough, brutal loss. And like I was saying on the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast that just got released yesterday, was the fact that there's two ways that you can handle getting knocked down. You can stay down and go on a little losing skid, and you can kind of let it define your season, or you can get right back up and dust it off and, let that motivate you for future games. And Louisville did that in this game against Wake Forest. They started out kind of slow, admittedly, which they tend to do. They were trailing by one at the end of the, at the end of the first quarter. But it was the second quarter that really, really got to me. I felt like, it's it was one of those where you saw the Louisville defense on full display. They outscored the Demon Deacons 23-4, and then the game was pretty much put away after that. They did struggle in the fourth quarter, I will say that. It was, the game was already out of reach. Wake Forest ended up cutting the final deficit to 12 points. So, and I guess you could say, at the very end, about halfway through the fourth quarter, Jeff Walz cleared the bench. Marissa Russell got some playing time, Ramani Parker, etc. So it's very solid of a game. Wake Forest was 12-7 coming into this one. However, all 7 losses, 7 now, they're 12-8, but 7 of those 8 losses have come in conference play. So, credit to Jeff Walz's team for taking advantage of a team that is slumping in the worst way possible right now. The Cardinals were led in scoring by Haley Van Lith, who has continued to continue her upward trajectory when it comes to scoring. She had 17 points on the afternoon, had 6 assists, so I really like what I saw from her, creating offense for others. Emily Inksler, 15 points, 8 rebounds. What was there more to expect from one of the best all-around players in the country? Olivia Cochran, not necessarily, continuing a great stretch. She had 4 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists, so not really much was needed from her. What I was really impressed with was Liz Dixon. 16 minutes of play, 5 for 5 from the field, 2 for 2 free throws. She had 5 rebounds to go along with 12 points. Those 3 were the only 3 to score in double figures. Kiana Smith didn't really shoot the ball all that great this afternoon, but was picked up by her teammates. I liked, even though the stat sheet doesn't really reflect it against NC State, I thought Liz Dixon came in and gave great minutes for the Cardinals, especially when guarding Alyssa Cunane and being very solid on the defensive end and rebounding and stuff like that. Offensively, I think she's getting more comfortable in the paint. She's getting more comfortable with that little, 10 to 12 foot jump shot, on the baseline, etc. I like what I'm seeing from her. That's very key that Olivia Cochran and Liz Dixon can continue their consistency consistency. Sorry, couldn't say that, because it gives the Louisville offense a much needed, more of a dynamic, so to speak. It raises their offensive ceiling instead of relying a lot on Kiana Smith, Haley Van Lith, Emily Inkster, which they're going to anyway. You then factor in the front court production, which is what they were able to get last year, and I think it helps them out a ton. So overall, very, very impressed with the way that Louisville came back out in this one. At the end of the day, they may not end up winning the regular season conference championship in the ACC, but at this point, it's all about continually getting better and better. This was a team, Wake Forest didn't necessarily shoot the ball well at all. Louisville's defense was on full display here. Wake Forest shot the ball just under 30% from the field. They did, however, shoot the ball decently from behind the arc. They were 9 for 21, which was good for 43%. The same amount of turnovers. So Louisville forced a good amount of turnovers, but they also kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by committing 7 turnovers on their own. Louisville shot the ball pretty decently as well, 51% from the field, 53% from behind the arc. They're not a great, not necessarily, I wouldn't say an elite three-point shooting team, but when they are making 50% of their threes and, over 7 a game, I think that is very, very solid. Free throw-wise, Boston College actually shot almost double Wake Forest shot almost double the free throws that Louisville did. It was all about a big run at the end of the second quarter and start of the third. I believe I saw someone tweet that it was a 30-0 run in this game against Wake Forest, and even if that was a little far-fetched, even if it was a little off, it was definitely at least a 20-0 run. So I think for a team that sometimes struggles offensively, we kind of saw that in the fourth quarter. I was impressed by the way they kind of commanded the game in that second quarter and the third quarter, and that's one thing that makes this Louisville women's basketball team so dangerous for any team that they play is, yes, they might struggle in the first quarter. You might outscore them in the first quarter. But one thing that they can do is they can force you to have a quarter to where you score less than 10 points in a 10-minute span. And, I mean, that's one reason why you see Louisville 15-2, and the only 2 losses they have are both to top 10 teams. One of them is going to be in the top 3, come this afternoon or come tomorrow whenever the AP rankings come out. But overall, I like what I saw today. Kind of a little, maybe not necessarily too close for comfort at the very end. You wish the deficit would have been a little more, but getting some valuable experience for some of the players that don't necessarily play a ton. I was, very pleased with what we saw today what we saw yesterday, I should say, for Jeff Walls' squad. Looking for them to continue to, continue their focus throughout, because, like I said, they still do have to play Duke. They still do have to play North Carolina. Both of those teams are ranked. So at the end of the day, you applaud the effort today, and we applaud the effort from yesterday, and we move on to the next matchup on Thursday. We'll now transition into the Mailbag Monday segment of the show. We'll do that here in a second after we talk about a couple of our friends. The first one being BetOnline. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year. As we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond, it remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. A new year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today. You can use your promo code LOCKEDON to receive your 50% welcome bonus on the first deposit. Sorry, I had to got a little parched. So basically, from football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, and BetOnline is where the game starts. I also want to take this time to talk to you about our friends at Built Bar. It's the new year. What does that mean? New Year's resolutions. If yours is still intact and it's about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and maybe even better, it makes it easier to stick to your resolutions because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it, unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky, waxy, or taste like a chemical spill. It's covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar and 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and you compare that to a candy bar, which usually has about 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count it as a workout. Do yourself a favor. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Once again, that's using the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final segment of the show, as always, dedicated to the Mailbag Monday, or whichever episode, I guess I should say, because sometimes it's been Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. But ultimately, there are some good questions in there. There's a women's basketball question, there's a football question, there's a men's basketball question, there's a volleyball question. I mean, it is a pretty packed mailbag. Let's go ahead and start out with the football question. If you've seen my Twitter, or if you've gone to Cardinal Sports Zone's Twitter, you understand that it is a big, and I'm talking probably the biggest recruiting weekend that Louisville football has had in a couple of years, maybe in the biggest in Scott Satterfield's tenure, and maybe going back to the Charlie Strong days. Like, there are a ton of highly rated guys. Most notably, the 4-star quarterback from California, Pierce Clarkson, which most Louisville fans know a lot about. The question is, how big would a commitment from Pierce Clarkson be in January? Well, there's two parts to this. First of all, you are assuming that you hold on to him and he signs with you, because committing somewhere and signing elsewhere, we've seen that happen. It happened with Chubba Purdy back in the 2020? Yeah, 2020. Sorry, I had my years mixed up. But you do have to hold on to these guys. They're highly rated, so they're going to have the top programs going after them, etc. Pierce Clarkson, a commitment from him. Number one, it gives you the chance to have the best recruiting class in school history. Louisville, as much success as they've had in the past 20-something odd years. The recruiting classes, I think 2018 was the highest rated recruiting class, per annual recruit, and the next closest was this past class in Flyville 22. So getting a 4-star quarterback could pay dividends for the recruiting class as a whole, because big talent attracts more big talent. So being able to get a guy from California, he's talked about having some other guys play with him, and we'll continually talk about. We're going to have a segment later on in the week about breaking down this recruiting breaking down this recruiting weekend and everything, and talking about some of the players and breaking their games down a little bit more. So we'll have a full-on recruiting episode and all that good stuff. But if you were to hold on to him, we've seen a top quarterback come in and change the direction and change the trajectory of a program, as Teddy Bridgewater. Now, am I saying that he's going to be as good as Teddy? No, I am not. Juwan Pass was a 4-star guy. No disrespect to Juwan. I will say, I'll say, respectfully, that it can be said that he didn't necessarily live up to the expectations that we had for him here in Louisville. There were a couple factors that got into that. He had a couple different coaching changes. He was behind Lamar Jackson, etc. But I'm just saying that not every highly rated commit or highly rated guy is going to be a star at the next level. So I think that if Pierce Clarkson turns out to be pretty solid, which 2023 Malik is gone, or fall of 2022, fall of 2023, you can definitely have yourself freshman getting big time minutes, or big time snaps. And this is a good opportunity, can change the whole trajectory if things go well. So transitioning over into the men's basketball side of things, I feel like I answered this, so I apologize for not having addressed this earlier. And that is what is the main problem with Louisville men's basketball right now? I think right now it's just kind of consistency. I think that you have a handful of guys that are stepping up at different times, but it's not like in a collective sense. And and there's sometimes where it's almost like nobody steps up at all, unfortunately. But we haven't necessarily had a stretch of the season to where we've had the same guys stepping up consistently game in and game out. And I think that lack of continuity is showing in the win-loss column. So women's basketball. The question is, are you worried about Narika Kono's absence from the team and why she didn't play on Sunday against Wake Forest. Well, I'll say this. I don't know exactly what's going on with her. I'm not going to speculate or anything like that. Jeff Walls did. There was somebody tweeted out about Jeff Walls, saying something about Kono. She's going through some health issues right now, and they hope to get her back. Just that, that language that he's using right there, the hope to get her back. I'm not going to sit here and try to make something out of nothing. If it is, hopefully it's nothing serious. It is a little concerning, obviously, with it being unexpected, but hopefully it's something that she can overcome, and she can overcome it fully and, as quickly as possible, as long as it's a full recovery. We wish her the speediest recovery and the best wishes, in her journey. I hope that she's back on the court. Like I said, I don't want to look too much into this. Maybe I'm, putting too much emphasis on the word hope. But whatever it is, we wish her the best of luck, and we hope to see her on the court soon. So the last question of the day is going to be it's a volleyball question, and it is who do you think steps up next season in the absence of Tori Dilfer and Anna Stevenson? Well, for Tori Dilfer, it's going to have to be it's hard to come in and step in for the ACC setter of the year, the back-to-back years. Whoever it is, it's probably, maybe Raquel Lazaro. Excuse me. The grad transfer from USC, from Malaga, Spain. She's probably the presumed starter. You do have Elle Glock, another transfer from USC who was a freshman on the team last year, highly rated recruit, very decorated out of the state of Nebraska, which is Danny Busbum Kelly's, home state. So really, it's kind of hard to tell right now, who's going to be the setter next year, just considering the fact that, we still have to go through, spring practice and the off season. And, I think we'll have a better grasp of things after a couple months of spring practice. So in terms of the other, players, replacing Anna Stevenson, a lot of eyes are going to be, put on Amaya Tillman. Amaya Tillman probably, obviously is not going to be able to replace Stevenson by herself, considering the fact she was, next to her. We'll see a couple players, step into the mix. They have some other players stepping into the wing. I haven't heard any rumblings on whether or not they are, still actively seeking any transfers from the portal or not. So I can't speak to having any knowledge in that regard. But, Anna Stevenson's offensive production, it's going to be hard to replace that, obviously. She was, a menace at the net, both offensively and defensively, so they're going to miss her extremely, extremely crucial to success. You're going to see, players like Claire Chaussee, Aiko Jones, Anna DeBeer, et cetera. A lot is going to be it's just kind of, taking by committee. Players are just going to have to step up, but you do, return a great nucleus in Aiko, Claire, DeBeer, etc. So, I'm fairly confident that this team is going to be back in the running for a national title next season. I'm excited to see how spring practice goes. If you haven't checked it out, by the way, the past two feature articles I've written for CardinalSportsZone.com, which have come out in the past calendar week. First one with Tori Dilfer, the next one with Anna Stevenson. I have to say it was an absolute blast. Getting to talk with them and, hearing about their journey and how they got to Louisville and how big of a role Louisville has played in their lives, not only as volleyball players, but as people and in their faith and their relationships with their teammates and coaches and the rest of the student body and people at U of L, et cetera, and their future plans. It's incredible, to see, how well they handled themselves. And I'm very, very excited for their future. I think that, say this for the record, Anna Stevenson will be on that 2024 United States Olympic volleyball team that will compete in Paris. And Tori Dilfer taking this semester, so to speak, I guess you could say, until the summer to, rehab her body, get fully healthy again, from the, just the lingering, minor issues and that comes with a season injury-wise, no major injury or anything like that. But she's going to continue to work with FCA here and, approach, her professional career in the summer, and just very excited to follow their careers. And, that I think that that's the great thing about, what they've done for this program is not only, have you set the tone for the program for the near future, but you also, you give the fan base an opportunity to, start to venture into new mediums, professional volleyball and all that good stuff. So be sure to check that out. If you have any questions for next week's Monday mailbag segment, or if you have any ideas on, a certain section or a segment that you would like covered, or a question that you have that I could address, cohesively in one of these episodes, definitely let me know. Reach out. You can, DM me on my Twitter, the Locked On Louisville Twitter. That is at LO_Louisville. Talked about, both the men's basketball loss, the women's basketball win, and the Monday mailbag segment tomorrow. It's going to be it'll probably be a lot of we'll do some talk about men's basketball in terms of looking ahead to the next matchup coming up. We will start talking about this recruiting weekend, etc. So I hope to have you check it out. That's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show, though. Everyone have a great start to your week. It's a great week to be great at life. Like I said, you can follow me on all of the social media at defense_, at LO_Louisville. Thanks to everyone that is sharing, liking, rating, subscribing to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the Locked On Louisville Twitter page and YouTube page, etc. That's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great start to your week, and we will see you right back here as always tomorrow.